The Aurora Grace was a leviathan of human ingenuity and compassion. Gliding through the void like a wounded swan, its exterior was painted a pristine white, interlaced with sky-blue stripes that gleamed in the starlight. Nearly half a kilometer long, the ship housed 12 medical bays, 3 hydroponic gardens, and 40 life pods, all designated for the care and rescue of war's most innocents. Inside, the atmosphere was hushed but purposeful. The soft hum of machinery, the muted beeping of monitors, and the hushed conversations of surgeons and nurses formed a gentle counterpoint to the violent chaos it was designed to heal. Captain Alara Kim stood on the bridge, her silhouette etched against the vast panorama of the Andromeda expanse. Beyond the armored glass, nebulous clouds swirled in violet and gold, punctuated by distant flares of nascent stars. She walked the length of the console with deliberate steps, her boots clicking on the polished deck. At 39 years old, Alara's face bore the faint creases of countless crises, but her steel-gray eyes still radiated a steady warmth. Behind her, the bridge crewed 20 souls from half a dozen worlds worked in quiet harmony. Medical Bay 1 reports to dozen new arrivals, said Dr. Raj Rao from his station in engineering, his tone proud and measured. Raj, once a weapons engineer turned trauma specialist, had reconfigured the ship's aft hold to carry an unprecedented volume of supplies, surgical drones, organ bank cryostorage, and ballistic gel plaster, enough to treat tens of thousands of wounded from the frontiers. War zones, Alara nodded. Excellent. Keep the conveyors at full capacity and maintain life support buffers. We can't afford a single glitch. Raj tapped a final command, and a soft chime echoed in the bridge intercom. Done. I've also rerouted 3 auxiliary power lines to sustain medbay hydroponics in case of grid failure. The captain offered a rare, fleeting smile. Good thinking. Those basilisk sprouts have saved more lives than any medicine when systems fail. Below decks, corridors branched like capillaries. Nurse Leah Torres moved swiftly down one such corridor, her white uniform streaked with the faintest scars of red antiseptic. She knelt beside a small Centauran childess for a pale lavender, speckled with bioluminescent freckles, and gently applied a cooling gel to a burn on its forearm. The infant whimpered, and Leah's soft humming seemed to calm it. Moments like this were Leah's reason for volunteering her medical expertise on the Aurora Grace, to bring kindness into the cold expanse of space. At the far end of the ward, a cluster of volunteers folded blankets and prepared nutrient packs. Elena Morales, a weary logistics officer, barked instructions. Double the ice packs. We're expecting heat stroke cases from Kondorev's survivors. Leah glanced up. How soon until we reach their rendezvous point? 2 hours at our current drift speed, Elena replied, eyes never leaving her datapad. If we engage the warp coils, we can shave off 30 minutes, but that'll torque the interior more than the patients can bear. Leah nodded, understanding the trade-off all too well. Speed meant risk, caution meant time. Lives balanced on the edge of both. Back on the bridge, Alara watched as the star map updated, clusters of red icons marking populous outposts and small yellow triangles, the designated pickup points for the next batch of refugees. A constant procession of human and alien cries for help streamed through the calm frequencies. Fractured transmissions from besieged stations, desperate pleas from planetary colonies under bombardment, sobs from those who'd lost grandmothers and siblings and memories in the blistering firestorms of war. Alara's comm unit crackled. Captain, I'm picking up a faint signal on an old frequency band non-encrypted. It's a distress call, but it's not on our manifest. She frowned. Source? Lieutenant Vivian Codas tapped a touchscreen, hard to pinpoint, originating from within the nebula ahead. Signature matches nothing in our database. Alara paused. Send a probe. I want visuals and a spectrum analysis before we commit. Aye, Captain. Vivian's fingers danced over the console, launching a slender drone into the purple-gold haze. Every member of the bridge leaned forward as the view screen flickered. The drone's camera peeled away layers of cosmic dust to reveal nothing. No ship, no wreckage. Just a swirl of charged particles dancing in the abyss. Then the feed cut out, replaced by static. The probe's last location blinked out of sensors, probes offline," reported Vivian, brow furrowed. "No signs of distress, just a space." Alara's jaw tightened. "Very well. Continue our course to Condor 4. Keep an eye on that sector and raise Med Bay. Let them know about the phantom signal." "Aye, Captain," came the reply as the bridge resumed its calm efficiency. Alara stepped away from the console and peered back through the observation window. Somewhere beyond the veil of gas lay lives in peril, lives she was sworn to save. Yet the silence felt absolute, pregnant with the promise of something sinister. The nebula's chaotic beauty belied a hidden stillness, as though something waited just out of sight. That she let out a slow breath. "Maintain red alert status," she ordered quietly. "No one lower shields until we're clear. I don't want any surprises." Below deck, Leah finished her shift and rose warily. The wards were filling faster now, the groans of pain more insistent. She paused for a moment in the corridor, hands on hips, and looked at the clustered life pods, all hollow, all waiting. Each one held a soul who might not be given a second chance. Leah whispered to herself, "We'll save them. We have to." Above them, the Aurora Grace pressed onward, a solitary white arc carving a path through the violet gloom. Hope was its cargo, compassion its engine. Yet in the swirling nebula ahead, something stirred that would soon shatter the fragile serenity and ignite a war whose shockwaves would darken the very stars. The Aurora Grace glided deeper into the nebular haze, the violet tendrils of ionized gas curling around its hull like silent sentinels. Below decks, the corridors thrummed softly with the pulse of life support, ventilators, nutrient dispensers, and suction systems that scrubbed the air of pathogens. Everywhere, med-techs flitted between compartments, their footsteps muted on the padded floors. The faint scent of antiseptic mixed with the earthy tang of hydroponic gardens, whose rows of basilisk sprouts and oxygen-rich algae glowed like emerald beacons. On the bridge, Captain Alara Kim monitored the subspace scanners. The static embrace of the nebula masked most signals, but she trusted the Grace's advanced sensor suite. Lieutenant Vivian Kotas hovered over the tactical console, fingers tracking dozens of ghost-like blips. "Course is clear for another 10 kilometers, Vivian reported, voice measured. "No unidentified vessels. No energy signatures beyond background radiation." Alara pressed her lips together. "Good. Inform the crew to relax. Red alert. We don't need to wear everyone out before we reach Condor 4. As Vivian adjusted the threat matrix, the hum of the engines deepened, feeding power to the secondary drive coils. The ship swayed gently, as if buffeted by an unseen current. Outside, the nebula rippled in shifting colors, amethyst to gold, and back again, painting the hull in a kaleidoscope of light. Suddenly, the ship convulsed. From the aft section came a low, metallic groan, like the echo of a wounded beast. Yellow warning lights flashed throughout the bridge, and the soft hum became a ragged roar. Alara, Raj Rao's voice crackled through the comm. "We're picking up multiple hull breaches in the lower decks. Explosive decompression in Corridor 3-2. I need 10 seconds to seal the bulkheads." The captain shot to her feet. "Seal them now, and divert power to internal patch generators." Vivian's fingers flew over the controls. "Bulkheads closing. Now." A distant clang resonated through the decks as massive doors slid into place. A high-pitched hiss followed the sound of atmosphere fleeing into vacuum, and then the pressurized hiss of repressurization. "Status," Alara demanded. "Corridor 3 sealed. Nurses and patients evacuated moments before breach. No casualties yet, but there's shrapnel damage to the Med Bay's main artery." Roger's words were tight with urgency. "We lost half our coolant conduits." "Understood," Alara said. "Patch them as best you can. I want full life support." All words within 2 minutes. Before Raj could reply, the ship lurched again, this time so violently that Alara was thrown against the bulkhead. Sparking wires rained down as the bridge lights flickered. Something struck the starboard hull with a deafening impact, rattling windows and consoles alike. "Impact on port side," Vivian shouted. "Energy discharge plasma bolt. Mid-range frequency." On the view screen, a jagged scar of radiant light split the darkness, tracing an arc of violet fire across the hull before dissipating into the nebula. Alara's heart thundered. Report, are we under attack? Vivian's face paled. Yes. Multiple vessels decloaking from the nebula's depths. Identification. Xirax Dominion gunships. A collective gasp rippled through the bridge crew. The Xirax Dominion was an avowed enemy of humanity, rapacious, merciless, and expanding their territory even as peace talks teetered on the brink back home. Open a channel. Alara ordered. Hail them on all frequencies. Medical ship, non-combatant. Status, you have no authorization to engage. Static glared back at them. Then a voice clipped, unyielding, spoke through the speakers. Rora Grace. This is Commodore Rass of the Xirax 7th Squadron. Your surrender is neither requested nor required. Leave this sector or perish with your cargo. Alara gritted her teeth. Commodore Rass. I repeat, we are a hospital ship under the Protection Covenant. You will cease fire or be held accountable. Before she could finish, another plasma bolt slammed into the dorsal array, instantly vaporizing a section of the medical bay. A wave of panic swept through the bridge as alarms stuttered in urgent Morse. Shields at 20% and falling. Vivian cried. Deploy life pods. Alara's voice rang out. Launch every last one. Get patients and crew clear of the hull. On the main deck, pandemonium erupted. Screams of terror mingled with the hiss of air rushing into evacuation corridors. Life pods sealed like mechanical worms, then rocketed away on thrusters, leaving trails of pale blue exhaust against the nebular curtain. Some opened automatically, their occupants spilling into the void before homing beacons could activate. Others jammed, wheels spinning futilely as med techs struggled to free them by hand. In the upper wards, Leah Torres worked frantically to secure stretchers to the launch rails. A grav spike pierced the ceiling overhead, skewing a med scanner and sending it clattering at her feet. Leah, shouted Elena Morales, tugging on her shoulder. Up here, we've got 10 more stretcher binds, hurry. Leah nodded, swaying. As another impact shook the deck, she vaulted to her feet and dove for the next stretcher. It tipped, nearly sending a pair of patients tumbling into the corridor. With a grunt, Leah righted the frame and clicked it into the track. All around her, the ward lights flickered and died, plunging the room into gray gloom lit only by emergency strobes. A hissing alarm echoed overhead, sensing with the erratic beeping of defibrillators. The heat of battle radiated through the hull, as if the ship's bones were aflame. Back on the bridge, Alara lunged for the comm panel. Admiral Reyes, this is Kim. We're under unprovoked attack by Xirax forces. Repeat, hospital ship under fire. Request immediate assistance. On the view screen, the surface of Admiral Reyes' face appeared, austere behind the command chair of the USS Dauntless. His jaw tightened. Kim, I see it. War fleet is ready. Hang on. Message to all fleets. Proceed to engagement coordinates. Target Xirax escorts. Protect the Grace at all costs. The channel closed, but urgency crackled in every mind aboard the hospital ship. Missiles inbound. Vivian warned, pointing at converging blips on the tactical display. Starboard missile tubes, 5 seconds to impact. Countermeasure launch, Alara shouted. A volley of flares and decoys streaked into space, arcing like shooting stars. 2 missiles flared out in mid-flight, reduced to twinkling embers. But a third found its mark. The missile slammed into the engine nacelle, detonating with a thunderous concussion that rattled the bridge speakers and flooded the chamber. With white-hot light, Alara shielded her eyes as the bridge shuddered. Alarms wailed. The gravity dampeners momentarily failed, sending crew loose in weightless arcs. Consoles toppled, cups of synthivine spilled, their bittersweet aroma replaced by the acrid tang of ozone. Moments later, the dampeners rebooted, yanking everyone back into place. The view screen revealed the price of survival. The Aurora Grace was limping, its engines half dead, trailing a plume of superheated plasma. The hull, once pristine white, was now pocked with glowing craters and charred matrix. Alara's voice was low, resolute. Damage report, main engines at 25% thrust. Impulse backup at 40, Raj replied. Medbay fully compromised. Life support sustaining only critical wards, understood, Alara said. She rose, eyes blazing. Prepare for evacuation. Keep the bridge sealed. We'll coordinate lifepod launches from here. Vivian hesitated. Captain, our entire sensor grid is scrambled. We ***** do it. Alara cut him off. Send every last one. Then signal Earth's fleet. Save what's left. As the bridge crew scrambled, Alara allowed herself a heartbeat to feel the weight of betrayal. A hospital ship starving civilians and wounded innocents pulled apart by enemy fire. The protection covenant lay in tatters, and with it, any hope of peaceful resolution. But as the first life pod disengaged from the docking clamps and drifted toward the alien silhouette of approaching warship's blue lights blinking reassuringly, in the void Alara Kim locked her jaw. They had unleashed the storm. Now they would choose to stand and fight and show the Xerax dominion that humanity's compassion was not weakness, but steel.
The USS Dauntless thundered into the nebular cloud above the Andromeda expanse, its massive dorsal cannon primed and shimmering with charged plasma. Admiral Jonah Reyes stood on the command bridge, arms folded behind his back, eyes trained. On the holomap that displayed the crippled silhouette of the Aurora Grace and the sleek, predatory shapes of Xyrax gunships closing in. Status report. Reyes ordered, his voice calm but unyielding. Tactical screen shows 6 hostiles, Lieutenant Marcus Haffel reported. Our fleet is in position 20 battle cruisers, 30. Destroyers, 12 frigates. All weapons hot, Admiral. Reyes nodded. Target the nearest Xyrax escort. Emphasize precision fire no stray shots toward the Grace. A chorus of affirmative replies echoed around the bridge. Outside the reinforced viewports, Earth's armada unfurled like a living constellation. Turbolaser arrays ignited in synchronized brilliance, each bolt tracing a brilliant arc against the storm-lit nebula dot below decks on the Aurora Grace. The survivors of the life pod launches huddled in clusters under the eerie glow of emergency. Lights. Nurse Laia Torres breathed deeply, her eyes wide but determined. She tended to a wounded Kandari soldier who'd lost both legs, wrapping sterile bandages around crude prosthetic stumps. Every so often, the ship shuddered as distant explosions rippled through the hull. Elena, Leah called softly to the logistics officer. How long until we stabilize life support? Elena checked her datapad. We've rerouted every available power line, but we're running on auxiliary reserves. Maybe another 20 minutes, assuming no more hits. Leah swallowed. We don't have 20 minutes. A deep rumble reverberated through the decks as a colossal beam of emerald plasma lanced through the nebula. It struck one of the frigates in Earth's rear guard, fracturing armor plates and igniting secondary explosions. The corridor lights flickered violently, then steadied. Back on the Dauntless, Admiral Reyes watched the display, jaw set, return. Fire pivots on the flank, volleys 12 and 13. Concentrate on the flagship of the Xyrax squadron. I want it disabled, not destroyed. Firing now. Came the call. A lattice of cobalt beams converged on the lead Xyrax vessel. Its hull flared, then cracked in a series of concussive bursts. Moments later, its engines sputtered and died, leaving it adrift among rippling shockwaves. Direct hit, Haffel confirmed. They're breaking formation. Pursue and finish them, Reyes snapped. No quarter. Across the void, the surviving Xyrax gunships twisted away, but Earth's destroyers cut off their retreat. Railguns roared like thunder, deploying. Hyperdense slugs that shredded armor and rent the alien hulls in gleaming ribbons of molten metal. On the Aurora Grace, Leah heard the distant cannonade as a grim lullaby. She pressed a cooling pack against the soldier's wounds, her heart pounding with each aftershock. Suddenly, the overhead speakers crackled to life. Bridge to infirmary. Captain Kim's voice rang out. The fleet has engaged. We're clear for transfer. Send your critical patients to the forward airlock. Evac shuttles inbound. Relief flooded the ward like a balm. Nurses and orderlies sprang into action, loading the grav trolleys onto the reinforced corridors. The sound of docking clamps and hydraulic pistons echoed, accompanied by the soft hiss of airlocks cycling got in the bridge pits of the Dauntless. Reyes watched the sensor logs feed in the hospital ship's vitals. Hull integrity at 45%, he murmured. Life support at 60. Lieutenant Hoffel turned. Admiral, the Xyrax flagship is down, but enemy reinforcements detected 18 medium cruisers emerging from the nebula's core. Reyes' eyes narrowed. Then we finish this now. He keyed his comb. All ships, second wave, open pattern Delta. Focus fire on incoming cruisers. Protect the Grace at all costs. 100 warships pivoted in unison, the black of space ignited by converging beams of violet and white. The nebula trembled as energy torpedoes streaked through the ionized mists, detonating in silent novae that wreathed the battle in phantasmagoric light. From the forward airlock of the Aurora Grace, evacuation shuttles lifted off in small, clustered pods. Each shuttle's canopy glowed soft orange, and their sleek hulls arced away from the battered hospital ship toward the safety of the larger human vessels. As Laia guided the last trolley aboard the shuttle, a fusillade of laser fire flickered against the ship's remaining shields. "Hang on!" the shuttle pilot shouted. With a juddering lurch, the shuttle dove forward, slipping through the blazing curtain of battle. Laia felt the craft's G-ives press her back into her seat, hard enough to blur the edges of the viewports, but exhilarating in its promise of deliverance. On the Dauntless, Admiral Reyes glimpsed the docking shuttle on his tactical display. "They're clear," he announced, allowing himself a fraction of a smile. "Now let's finish this." The enemy cruisers advanced in tight formation, their silver hulls carved with arcane symbols of conquest. But Earth's fleet struck like a hammer, point-blank broadsides from the Dauntless and her sister ships pulverized alien shields. Railguns tore into armor plating, and soon the cruisers began to fracture, their drives collapsing in responsive micro-supernovas. After 10 brutal minutes, the remaining Xyrax vessels scattered, banking back into the nebula's inky heart. The empty void that followed was thick with drifting debris-twisted metal, shattered life pods, and the silence of defeat. Reyes stood from his seat. All ships, stand down to patrol, gather survivors, and begin rescue operations. His comm buzzed with incoming reports, friendly vessels sweeping for escape pods, med teams dispatching to cloaked debris fields, engineers scanning for disabled Sigil-class liners. On the battered deck of the Aurora Grace, Captain Kim watched as the last of her wounded lifted away. She felt the ship settle unevenly on its remaining impulse thrusters. The hum of power reduced, but stubbornly alive. A voice crackled over her comm. "Admiral to Kim," she keyed the channel. "This is Kim. Your courage saved thousands today," Reyes said, his tone uncharacteristically soft. "The Xyrax will think twice before targeting another hospital ship." Alara allowed herself a weary nod. "Thank you, Admiral. Send over a salvage team when you can. We'll need every ounce of structural support to limp back to Earth." "Consider it done," he replied. The channel went silent, but his words hung in the stale air like a promise. Above them, the nebula's colors faded from violent purples to muted grays, as if its very substance had absorbed the fury of battle. Amid the drifting wreckage, the Aurora Grace and Earth's war fleet stood victorious, an iron bulwark against the darkness. Yet even in triumph, Alara Kim sensed the war was far from over. The Xyrax had been repelled, but their reach remained vast, their will unbroken. Somewhere beyond the veil of ionized gas, new threats stirred. And as the stars slowly brightened again, Alara knew that the true test of humanity's resolve was only just beginning.
The Aurora Grace drifted like a wounded bird through the thinning mists of the nebula. Its hull, scorched and perforated, bore the scars of Xerax plasma and Earth's own return fire. Among the twisted wreckage of shattered life pods and floating detritus, the hospital ship's broken lights pulsed in fragile staccato, a dying heartbeat in the silent expanse. On the bridge, Captain Alara Kim leaned over the tactical console, eyes weary but unbowed. Across the starfield, Earth's remaining warships held position in a protective cordon. Behind them, the nebula's swirling colors began to fade from violent violets to muted grays, as if the gas itself mourned the violence it had witnessed. Damage. Report, Alara commanded in a voice softer than before, but carrying the weight of unspoken grief. Hull integrity at 42%, Raj Rao replied, fingers flying across the diagnostic panels. Structural supports are failing in sectors C15 and FO9. Life support is holding at 55%, but we're venting atmosphere at 2% per hour. We'll need to jury-rig containment domes soon. Alara nodded, her expression tight. Assemble an engineering team. Patch those bulkheads with polymer matrix and field repair struts. I want every ward stabilized before we make the jump. Below decks, Leah Torres led a ragged crew of surgeons, med techs, and volunteers through the echoing corridors. Each step sent shudders through the decking, and the air smelled faintly of coolant and antiseptic. Her hands moved methodically, closing ruptured for lines, resetting pressure valves, and switching to emergency power life support panels. We need more med gel packs, Leah called to Elena Morales, who was tapping at a datapad beside a half-lit recycle unit. Sector FO9's dome seal is compromised. Patients inside are going hypoxic. Elena looked up, eyes flashing with resolve. On it. I'll scavenge from the garden section. There are surplus hydroponic seals that'll hold until we can get real parts from the salvage fleet. A distant tremor rattled the corridor lights. Leah steadied herself against the bulkhead and exhaled slowly. The survivors, Kandari refugees, Centauran children, Andromedan engineers watched with hollow eyes. Leah offered them a gentle smile. Stay calm. We'll get through this. At the forward airlock, Earth's shuttles had formed a ragged procession. Pilots and medical teams worked amid the metallic din to transfer the most critical patients aboard the USS Dauntless's hospital deck. The Grace's own shuttles had been lost or disabled, leaving only half-dozen battered craft to ferry the wounded. Captain Kim watched the transfer through the observation dome, her reflection ghost-like against the nebula's pale glow. A surge of gratitude filled her. Admiral Reyes had held the fleet long enough to see every shuttle depart, but every evacuation left behind empty stretchers and unspoken farewells. On the Dauntless Bridge, Admiral Reyes observed the final shuttle's departure. He exhaled, tension softening the lines around his eyes. They're all clear, he announced. Voice steady. Send the salvage teams in, and get me Alara Kim back on the Aurora Grace. Alara returned to the bridge just as the last thruster flare vanished into the void. Lieutenant Kova's enfolded a data rod in a protective cradle. We've beam-linked medical logs to the fleet, every injury, every treatment record. We've secured what we can. Alara pressed a hand to the window. Silence stretched between her and the nebula, broken only by the faint mechanical hum of the dying ship. Helm, she said quietly. Bring us to flank formation with the Dauntless. I want to ride alongside her for the jump home. Aye, Captain, came the reply. The starboard engines sputtered, then blood thrust as the Grace stuttered toward the flagship's side. Sparks drifted in the dark corridors like pale fireflies mourning the end of summer. Moments later, Admiral Reyes's face filled the holocom. His features were drawn but resolute. Kim, you held the line when it mattered most. Earth and every innocent life owes you its gratitude. Alara managed a tired half-smile. We did our duty, Admiral. But this ship, it won't survive a full hyperspace jump in this state. He leveled her with a steady gaze. Then we'll bring you home under impulse. Our engineers will ship yard. You and patch you up. The fleet's next stop is home port, where I'll see you both repaired and fated. Tears pricked at Alara's eyes, frustration, relief, and pride warring for supremacy. Thank you, she whispered as the Grace and Dauntless glided in tandem. The nebula's final wisps parted, revealing the glitter of distant stars. Among them, The pale shimmer of Earth's home sector beckoned like a promise, gardens waiting to be replanted, surgeons ready for fresh cases, and a universe reborn from ashes. Down in the hydroponic gardens of the Aurora Grace, Dr. Raj Rao and the engineering teams worked feverishly. They sealed breaches with grafted polymer panels, rerouted coolant lines through emergency manifolds, and rewove the old basilisk vines into makeshift conduits for power cables. The scent of basil and ozone mingled in the air, an alchemy of life and steel. Alara descended to the garden decks, where Leah and Elena had joined the effort. Survivors pressed wounded hands against the smooth stalks of hydroponic filters. Drawing comfort from their green glow, Leah looked up and offered Alara a weary grin. "We'll grow stronger," she said simply. Alara placed a hand on Leah's shoulder. "Because we must, and because we will." In the observation lounge, scattered crew members and survivors gathered. Through the panoramic viewport, stars wheeled in slow arcs, light unbroken by war. The nebula's ghostly afterglow had faded, but its memory lingered in every scarred bulkhead and every hushed conversation. Captain Kim stood at the center of the room, flanked by her officers. She raised her voice, steady and clear. "Today, we witnessed compassion become a weapon of its own. The Xerax Dominion thought they could scare us into silence, but instead they ignited humanity's wrath and its hope." A hush fell, then rippled applause and murmurs of agreement. The survivors, once broken and afraid, stood taller. The wounded, their pain eased by expert hands, smiled with newfound courage. Alara's gaze swept the assembled Souls engineers, med techs, soldiers, refugees, and she felt a fierce pride. "We depart this nebula scarred, but unbowed. Our mission endures, to heal, to protect, and to stand unwavering against the darkness. We've seen how fragile peace can be, and how precious life truly is." She paused, letting the words settle. "Tomorrow we chart for Earth, and when we arrive, we will rebuild, we will remember the fallen, and we will ensure that mankind's compassion shines brighter than any star." Around her, the lights of the Aurora Grace brightened, no longer faltering, but resolute. The hospital ship, battered and weary, exhaled its last tremor of fear and stood ready once more. Outside, in the infinite black, the stars glimmered with renewed brilliance, as though darkness itself had been driven back and dawn had come at last.